Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Divorce Coach Diaries. So, something that I've been thinking a lot about lately and that's coming up in a lot of my sessions is how do I know if I'm making the right choice? So, let's talk about it today. How to know what you should do. And it's an interesting idea because most of us were socialized or were taught that there's a right choice and there's a wrong choice. And I just want to make it clear right now that we are not talking about moral choices or ethical choices. We are not talking about choices that will cause literal harm to somebody else or choices that are really dishonest, things like that. We're just talking about choices and options that present themselves in our lives and that we tend to get paralyzed with. We just can't make decisions. And this is something that I have practiced getting a lot better at is making quick, confident decisions. If you know me in real life, you might be chuckling a little bit about this because it's true. I am not somebody who spends a whole lot of time thinking through things. And of course, there are decisions in our lives that really do warrant some thought and some, weighing the pros and cons. But that is not the case for most of the decisions that we face in our lives. And it tends to not serve us when we don't make decisions because often the reason that we're not making the decision is because we think there's a right one and a wrong one, and not making that decision lets us stay exactly where we're at. And while we might not like where we're at, on some level, it feels safer and it feels better. Because here's the thing, when you commit to something, when you make a decision, that's our opportunity to move forward. And sometimes we don't want to do that. So you might notice that before you make a decision or when you are faced with a choice, it's exhausting. We spin on it, we ruminate on it. We might wake up in the middle of the night and our brain is just going and going and going and thinking about all the things that might happen if we make choice A, or if we make choice B, or if we make choice C, and what's the worst that could happen if we make all these choices. And we go down this rabbit hole of pain and misery for ourselves when it's just optional. Or maybe you find yourself asking everybody else what you should do. And of course, most of our decisions, everybody's going to have a different opinion. And it starts to be not helpful at all. It creates even more confusion. So, my friend, if this is you, don't worry. This happens to all of us, and decision making is a skill that we can practice and we can get better at. So, why does it feel so hard to make and commit to a decision? Most of us are taught to look outside of ourselves for the answers. And we worry so much and we put so much emphasis on what other people think. What other people think about our lives, what other people think about us, what other people think about our decisions, our choices, all of these things we put so much emphasis on. And again, it doesn't mean that if you care what people think that you're doing it wrong. We are human and we are built and we're meant to care. It's what kept us safe. It's our instincts. We want to be in the group. And it was really dangerous for our ancestors to be cast out. And so we still want to make sure it's human nature to want to be approved of. But most of our decisions that we are making now are not life or death. They're not just simply right or wrong. And I know that some of the decisions that we are making, especially in this divorce space, they feel really heavy. And it might feel like, well, if I make this decision, then I'm hurting this group of people. And if I make this decision, I'm hurting these people. But the reality is, most decisions are not right or wrong. They're honest versus self-abandoning. And so I want you to think about that a little bit and sit with, if I was honest and if I was really doing what was best for me, and by extension, your kids, if you have children, what would I choose then? Or if I knew that everyone was going to approve of my choice, which, spoiler, they will not. Nobody makes decisions where everybody else agrees with it. So that's not the goal, but we're just going to trick our brain into not being so scared. So if I knew that everyone would approve of my decision, what would I do? And keeping in mind that some of the decisions that we make in the divorce space, they will have grief alongside of them no matter what. But there is a difference between clean and honest grief or the dirtier and more self-abandoning pain. We might also be afraid of regretting our decision or looking back and thinking, I never should have done that. That was the worst choice possible. And because I did that, this, and this happened. So try as much as you can to stay out of that space because it is pointless and it just does not serve you. And also, it's human nature to be afraid of being wrong. And this is something that is so deeply ingrained in us. And so, if this is you, don't worry. It just means that you are a healthy human. So, what should we not use to guide our decision-making compass? Urgency. I have to decide right now, no matter what. That's not going to produce our most honest decisions. Now, most of us fall very far to the other side of the spectrum of never making the decision or sitting with whether or not you should stay in a marriage for years and years and years and years, 15, 20 years even. So this doesn't serve us either. We don't want to be hasty, but we also don't want to just ruminate and have one foot in, one foot out, or not really commit to anything for a really long period of time. That doesn't serve you. If you're in a marriage, it doesn't serve your spouse, doesn't even serve your kids. So, we want to stay away from these fear-based questions like, what if I regret this? Or what are people going to think about me? These are just not useful. And another thing that I see happen with us is we're trying to be 100% okay or eliminate the discomfort before we make a choice. That is just not how it works most of the time. Sometimes you'll have an experience where something just becomes very clear to you and you can make that choice in that way. But usually we make decisions and choices. If it's a decision that's going to cause a lot of life changes or consequences for you and for your family, of course, we're not going to be completely comfortable with this choice. And it doesn't mean that you're making the wrong one. Discomfort is part of growth. So, what are some better questions to ask yourself instead of what are people going to think about me? Or what if I make the wrong choice? What if I regret this? What should we ask instead? What about what choice feels like love? What choice feels like love for me, love for my kids, even love for my spouse? Because here's the thing also, and I know this might be a polarizing opinion or something that's hard to hear, but it is not a loving choice to stay in a marriage that you don't want to be in. That does not show love to anybody in the story. Another question that you might ask yourself is, if I knew that no matter what, I was going to make the right decision, what choice would I make? And I know this is kind of a tricky idea to sit with, but I just want to encourage you to sit with it a little bit and to think about it and think about the possibility of, if you knew that you would make the right choice no matter what choice would that be? What does self-respect and love for me feel like here? Does this choice force me to abandon myself? Or is this a really loving choice for me? And also not ignoring your capacity. There are times in our lives where we are capable of different things. So, what can I actually do right now? What am I capable of? And see what comes up for you. And remember, we don't need to know the whole plan start to finish. And actually, it's not even possible to know that. We might think we know how things are going to go, but it's made up. It's just a story in our brain. So try when it's possible to not get lost in needing to figure out the whole plan right from now. Instead, focus on the next right step. And this is something that we've talked about a lot, but I want to encourage you and to challenge you to make decisions with the next right step in mind. Let's talk a little bit about our bodies, because here's the thing, our body often knows what to do before our brain catches up. Don't ignore your intuition. Pay attention to your body and to how things feel in your nervous system, and use that to guide you. Your body will give you signs of alignment and honesty versus feeling the self betrayal. And so don't ignore that. Don't ignore your body and your nervous system. It's there to protect you and to keep you safe. And we just don't want to ignore it. We might not choose to make decisions based only on what it feels like in our body, but just don't ignore it completely. So, I want you to ask yourself these few questions when you are thinking about a decision that you are trying to make right now. Think about this. If nobody else had an opinion, what choice would I make? What's the next right step for me? If I trusted myself even 10% more, what would I change? Or what would my next right step be? And lastly, what am I afraid that making this choice will mean about me? And see what comes up for you when you think about those things in a little bit of a different way. And again, we're not trying to fix anything. We're just noticing and being aware and curious of what comes up when we think about those ideas. So, I know that at the beginning of this episode, I talked about how I tend to make decisions quickly and without a ton of internal drama in my head, but I am the outlier in that way. And if you want to practice making decisions more quickly, come to me and I will help you, because it's absolutely a skill that you can get better at if it's something that you're interested in. But I also want to give you permission to not be that way. And if you want to take some more time, if it feels safer and better to you, you are allowed to decide something slowly. You're not behind. You don't need permission. You are allowed to make a choice and even change your mind. So I want to encourage you to just keep moving forward and not wait for no discomfort at all, or for what seems like the perfect choice or perfect decision, because those are just really unlikely. If you need help making any type of decision in your life, especially when it comes to your marriage or your relationship, or even decisions that need to be made during your divorce, come to me, book a call. I help people for free on Tuesdays. So hop on my calendar, megthedivorcecoach.com/free coaching, and come and talk to me. And let's see if we can get a little bit more clear on what is the next right step for you. Have a great weekend, my friends. I'll see you next time.